Welcome to the 2021 Virtual Slovak Heritage Festival. My name's Rick Sebak. I'm going to be your host. Obviously, we can't be together inside the cathedral again this year, but we can gather around our devices and enjoy the sights and sounds you know from the festival. Now, we hope you'll react and comment on all the folk dances, the educational lectures, and the surprise guest appearances we have lined up for you. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anything. I do not speak Slovak. But we have some greetings from our community leaders, and we're going to listen first to the Slovak National Anthem as performed by the Slovak Heritage School of Mr. Štefaník.
Milí Slováci, krajania a priatelia Slovenska. Dovoľte mi pozdraviť vás aspoň takto na diaľku. Som rada, že v Pittsburghu, meste, ktoré je silne späté s našou demokratickou štátnosťou, organizujete už po 31. raz Festival slovenského kultúrneho dedičstva. Ďakujem všetkým organizátorom a vážim si to, že aj napriek pandémii, ktorá poznačila naše každodenné životy, aj životy našich blízkych, máte stále energiu, nadšenie a odhodlanie budovať a podporovať slovenskú krajanskú komunitu. Prosím, príjmite moje srdečné pozdravy. Prajem vám, aby ste sa na tohoročnom festivale cítili dobre, spoznali nových ľudí a našli inšpiráciu pri objavovaní svojich koreňov a rozvíjaní slovenského kultúrneho dedičstva v USA. Ďakujem.
Dear friends and colleagues, as a Slovak ambassador to the United States of America, I am very proud to be part of the annual Slovak Heritage Festival, which is organized under the auspices of the University of Pittsburgh. My brief visit to the university proved to me that this is a very, very important moment in the life of the Slovak community in the United States and also for the Slovaks living outside. University of Pittsburgh hosts the only Slovak course in the Western Hemisphere. It's very important and symbolic since in Pittsburgh and surrounding there are many, many hundreds of thousands of Slovaks or people with Slovak origin. The famous artists like Andy Warhol resided and was born in Pittsburgh. Many ice hockey players played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and many, many other Slovaks created the wealth of Pennsylvania and the Rust Belt of the United States, the iron heart of the United States and the economy. From this point of view, it's very important that the heritage of the Slovak community is kept, and the diversity of the people who are building the Slovak community in the United States and in Pennsylvania is very important. I'm glad that all the generations are coming to Pittsburgh's Heritage Festival once a year and remember from where they came and honor their ancestors. Because through knowing our ancestors, we can build our bright futures. So I'm glad to pledge for the Embassy of the Slovak Republic in Washington, D.C. to be there for you when you need us to support your courses and your festival and your heritage. together we will build a strong Slovak-American connection.
Dobrý den, Excellencies, professors, guests, and friends. I am honored to participate in the Slovak Heritage Festival virtually. I really wish I could be there in person to celebrate with you today. I want to convey my special greetings to the University of Pittsburgh and to the chair of the Slavic Languages Department, Bella Grigorian. I so enjoyed my visit in June. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Leon Sebak, longtime organizer of this great event. As I walked down the streets of Pittsburgh with the Slovak ambassador to the United States, Radovan Javorčík, I was immediately struck by the vibrant energy of your wonderful city. It was a powerful experience, and I felt the impact of the Slovak and Czech communities who continue to pass down their history and traditions through generations of Americans. Thank you to the Western Pennsylvania Slovak Cultural Association and to Mary Wilshire and Marianne Ponest for keeping your traditions alive. The highlight of that trip for me was the visit to the exact location where the Pittsburgh Agreement was signed, knowing the impact that event had in laying the foundation for an independent Czechoslovakia in 1918. I was also honored to meet several of you at the university as well, including Dr. Nancy Kondi, Director of the Center for Russian, East European, and Eurasian Studies, Dr. Zuzana Magdo, its Associate Director, Dr. Kathleen Manukyan, Managing Director of the Summer Language Institute, and Ms. Marianne Sebak, who is responsible for the nationality rooms. It was so moving to hear about the rich history of Czech and Slovak families in America. And to Joe Senko, Honorary Consul, who showed us around with unmatched enthusiasm and pride. Thank you. Separately, I'd also like to recognize Cecilia Rokusek, the president of the National Czech and Slovak Museum in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and her husband, Bob, whom I had the pleasure to meet here in our embassy in Bratislava when they visited Slovakia in the fall. It is no surprise to me that the Slovak diaspora continues to honor your cultural heritage and family traditions with this festival. Even virtually, I know that everyone will enjoy some fantastic performances, music, folk dance, and films, which celebrate a rich Slovak heritage. I have come to love the country of your families and believe these wonderful efforts you make to pass the traditions of your parents and your grandparents are what makes the United States such a vibrant and strong country for us all. I wish you all the best and hope to meet you all in person again soon. Enjoy the festival.
Greetings from Bratislava. I'm Milan Pilip, Chairman of the Office of Slovaks Living Abroad. We wish you a very happy and successful virtual Slovak Heritage Festival in Pittsburgh. If you would like more information about the certificate of Slovaks Living Abroad and the grants that you can apply for, visit our website listed below. Have a wonderful festival.
Hi, I'm Joe Senko, the Slovak Honorary Consul for Pennsylvania and the Executive Director of the Western Pennsylvania Slovak Cultural Association. Welcome to the 31st Slovak Heritage Festival presented by the University of Pittsburgh. I hope all these programs will be enjoyed by you and your family. Also, I hope to see you in person at next year's festival on the first Sunday of November 2022.
Hello, dear friends of Slovakia, its language, culture, and history. My name is Renata Kamenárová, and I am the acting director of the Slovak Studies program at the University of Pittsburgh. I am very honored that I can continue the mission that several scholars were involved in. The late Professor Martin Votruba was the director of the Slovak Studies program for almost 3 decades, and one of his greatest involvements was the organizing of the annual Slovak Heritage Festival. It has always been a brilliant occasion to meet with friends, honor our ancestors, and reconnect with our homeland, Slovakia. While the virtual form we are using again this year is a great way to engage with many people all over the world, I sincerely hope that in a year's time we'll be able to meet personally right here in the Cathedral of Learning at the University of Pittsburgh. My thanks go to Leon Sebak, the festival director, and to Bela Grigorian, the chair of the Department of Slavic Languages and Literatures, along with all the faculty and staff involved in the preparation of this important event. I really hope you enjoy the festival and I wish you príjemnú zábavu.
Thanks, Renata. I'm Leon Sebak, the festival director. A lot of people worked very hard to put together this year's festival. I'd like to thank everyone who participated. We hope you enjoy it. This year we have something different, a competition. Pay close attention to the content of the festival. At the end, there are going to be 5 questions. The first 3 people to answer the questions correctly and email us at slovakheritagefestival@gmail.com will win some prizes. You have to live in the continental US. We have a Slovak textbook and a handy Slovak phrasebook. Again, that's slovakheritagefestival@gmail.com. And without further ado, enjoy the festival.
Watch this beautiful video of the top 12 places in Slovakia you need to see, courtesy of the Hike the World YouTube channel. This year we have some wonderful music videos from some great bands from Slovakia. We hope you like them.
Akoby detva obrov nemá. Mať zrodila v poli syna, trávovú plachtu porozvíjala, z buka na buk ju pripína. Prvý raz oči šuhaj roztvorí, čo vidí. Výsos poľany, hory a opachy nezvratných skál. A spustí zraky prvé v doliny, čo vidí. Hory, zázračné stíny a prekrásnu slovenskú diaľ. A k akej piesni chlapča privyká. Vietor duje horou hrubou a pekná pieseň šumnej materi mladušku dušu len s krásou viery, aby celkom si dnes divel. Aj keď poľanou výchor predúva, aj slovenskej mladuchy spev.
Slovak-based Rusin band Hrdza put a modern spin on the old folk song Štefan.
Dajte, nemamko moja. Hello, my name is Yanais and I'm Slovak singer and songwriter. I'd like to introduce you my new song called Domov, meaning home in English. Since many of you have or had ancestors from Slovakia, this song as well as this festival may help you to reconnect with their homeland. To some of you who left Slovakia in recent decades, it can even revive your memories of your childhood, your parents, your grandparents, and even beautiful Slovak nature. You can listen to the song on Spotify, Apple Music, and watch it on YouTube, and I hope you will like it. I greet you all from Bratislava. Enjoy your festival, and see you sometime in the future.
Nad hlavou nebesa, pod nohami známa zem. Vraciam sa po stopách, pri tebe zaspávať chcem. Srdce clivé mi bije jak zvon, posledný krát volá ma domov, do tanca mi hrajú melódie. Srdce clivé, ja nosím ťa v ňom, posledný krát voláš ma domov, ak je láska večná. Oboch nás prežije. Na pleciach bremena, v batohu spomienok pár. Jak dieťa bez mena, túlavý vlk samotár. Srdce clivé mi bije jak zvon, posledný krát volá ma domov, do tanca mi hrajú melódie. Srdce clivé, ja nosím ťa v ňom, posledný krát voláš ma domov, ak je láska večná. Oboch nás prežije. Keď búrka prehrmí, oblaky odplávajú. K sebe ma privolaj, svetlá pozhasínajú. Náruč Margaret vábi vôňou omamnou, v nohách šíri svet. Domov mám pred sebou, srdce clivé mi bije jak zvon, posledný krát volá ma domov, do tanca mi hrajú melódie. Srdce clivé, ja nosím ťa v ňom, posledný krát voláš ma domov, ak je láska večná. Oboch nás prežije. K zemi sa priviniem, čo bolo, neľutujem.
Ja som Zuzana. Som z Rožkavian na Šariši, ale teraz pôjdem do Ameriky, konkrétne do Pensylvánie. Tu mám príbuzník a kamarátov. V Pensylvánii budem pracovať ako služka a dúfam, že si nájdem pekného muža. Možno, že sa raz ja, alebo moje deti, vnúčata alebo pravnúčata vrátia na Šariš.
Next up, we have a talk by Joseph Vilagi on the Slovak immigrant experience in America, focusing on the town of Braddock, PA.
And I'm here today to give you a talk about the Americanization of the Slovak immigrants. And many of our reference points for the day today will be the city of Braddock, Pennsylvania. Braddock is a steel factory suburb of Pittsburgh, and it was one of the first places where Slovak immigrants came. They started coming to Braddock from Slovakia in the 1880s. And there was a huge, enormous wave of immigration from 1880 to about 1924. And after 1924, it became very more involved in terms of the paperwork, the documents, the things one needed to go from Europe to the United States. The average workman in a factory or in a coal mine up until the 20s made roughly $4 a week, if that. And that was very low on the scale. Factory labor was kind of a job for new immigrants or new people to this country. They worked cheaply, they did heavy, dirty work that most of the Americans didn't want to do. And that was kind of the initial starting point for most of these people. For example, the University of Pittsburgh Press has published a book called Out of This Furnace, which is a classic story of 3 generations of a Slovak family. The first generation arrives in Slovakia to Braddock, of all places, and you see the story of their life and their Americanization and their transformation unfold. But the first immigrant era, these people worked very hard. They worked 6 days a week. Often people rented rooms in their homes to single men, and they built bunk beds to kind of make money. They would take in boarders, and the wife of the family would prepare lunch buckets of food for the guys, do their laundry once a week. But this was a money-making thing. And this went on until the end of immigration. But by 1924, when the United States government started the quota system and started requiring more documents and things in order to come to America, it kind of shut the door. And so that sort of life gradually dwindled down and died off. People in this era began to realize, those who were going to stay for the long term, they began to realize many things. You know, they had different levels of hygiene. They had different ideas of nutrition. And there were a lot of things, like in each of these factory towns, there were often places that charities set up called settlement houses, where they would sort of reach out to the newly arrived and teach them life skills, or how to budget, how to make your $4 a week stretch, how to cook with American food, how to fit in to this new society and this new world. And in one of these, and another thing that was very important were these English schools. This one was on Stokes Avenue in Braddock, and and this advertisement was geared to Slovak Americans. And essentially what the text here says is, don't have a millstone around your neck, learn English. And it's advertising, you could come and take lessons at night at the English school so that you could understand what the people were saying all around you, so that you could go outside of your community, go to the store, so that you could start to read things in this new language and understand and be more of a participant in the society. And also, when you had the realization that a lot of the people were staying for the longer haul, then you saw the rise of many community institutions. For example, many of them built churches, and many of them, there were many community organizations that built social halls, and the churches and the social clubs, the halls, became centers of community life. They became places where people could go to speak their languages to each other. They became places where you could have a wedding party, you could have a funeral wake, you could do many things in these places. You could come together as a community. Among the first churches were those in Braddock, because that was one of the early communities. This is the St. Paul Slovak Evangelical Lutheran Church in Braddock, and the building was built in 1891. Roughly a third of the Slovak population is Lutheran, and many of the Lutherans came, and many Catholics came. This is the interior of the St. Paul Lutheran Church. And these photos are circa the early 1900s, roughly about 1907. Not to be outdone, the Slovak Catholics were also building a network of churches. St. Michael the Archangel Church, Slovak Catholic Church, was built in 1892 in Braddock. And in fact, there were publications that gave the histories of all these places in the metro Pittsburgh area. And I'll give you an example. Here's a list of the Slovak Catholic parishes in metropolitan Pittsburgh. And many of them were founded late 18 and the early 1900s. It took roughly $4,000 to build St. Michael's Catholic Church. And the people would raise money. It was probably a similar amount for St. Paul's Lutheran Church. But these communities would meet. They often sought permissions to have their services in other churches, and those were often granted. And there was a story about, it was an interesting kind of circular thing. In the town of Mount Pleasant, there was a Slovak Catholic church, and they actually gave permission to the Jewish community to have their services on Saturdays in their church hall basement till the community could build its own temple. So, a lot of there was some interplay among the different groups who already had institutions, but these institutions were family oriented. They knew that these people were here to stay, and they were there to be kind of community centers. They were places where people could go and be linguistically comfortable. People didn't necessarily feel comfortable speaking with a heavy accent, going out into the Anglo world where, like the English school says, you need to learn to read, because they couldn't understand. They could read in Slovak, but it didn't help them because they couldn't read English and didn't have the slightest clue what a lot of these signs and things said. And they often were patronizing merchants, who sold, say, like small ethnic grocery stores, because they could speak their languages to these people. There was a family furniture chain business that still exists today. It's a huge scale enterprise now. They started their furniture store chain because they were immigrants from Poland, and they could speak the languages of most of the Slavic customers in these mill towns. And they gradually built one furniture store after another, and they employed people who could speak to these people, and the people would go shopping there because they could talk to someone. They could ask all their questions about what's this constructed from, what's the price. They could do some bargaining. They felt more comfortable, because otherwise when they went out to the ethnic world. They were very self-conscious of their accents. They were also self-conscious of their educational limits, and there was a lot of embarrassment in a way for them. And so, they started building communities and they started coming together. Other things they built were, and we'll talk about this, community institutions. This is a charter for the Slovak Sokol Lodge in Braddock. And a lot of these fraternal societies were important to the people. The Sokols operated a sports program. And their sports program, they were created as a sports society in 1862 in Prague. And it morphed all over the Slavic world in Europe. There were Sokol movements in Poland, Slovenia, Croatia, Bulgaria, Slovakia. And they were sort of like the YMCA of their day. And when the immigrants came here, they brought their sports with them. And they built these sport halls. And the sport halls also functioned as community centers. People would rent them for wedding parties, for funeral wakes. As these institutions were being built, in tandem with them, other things were happening culturally and economically. For example, amongst the things that were happening, this is a prayer book from the St. Paul Lutheran Church. Now, if you look closely, this is old style kind of Gothic script. And this book was printed in 1912. And many of these, at the beginning, very early on, the books were being imported from Slovakia. But not long after that, there became printeries because there became a market. For example, by 1936, this is a book of the Holy Scriptural Writings, and it was printed by a company on the Boulevard of the Allies in downtown Pittsburgh in 1936-37. And so, for those who stayed, then there began to be other needs being fulfilled. You had books in their languages. For example, this is from St. Paul's Lutheran Church. This book was printed in 1929, and it was a history of the Protestant Reformation, and it's in Slovak. These smaller books, this is the Passion of Christ. This is the service from St. Paul's Lutheran on Good Friday. This was printed in 1917, and it was printed in Pittsburgh. And the interesting thing is the printery was called Slovenský hlasnika, and it was printed on the north side of Pittsburgh. Again, another book, similar. And you started seeing other interesting things. Of course, the Catholics began printing books and things to serve their needs, but they created their own printery. These were all printed. For example, this one. Now, this was imported from Trnava in Slovakia. This is very, very old, actually. But by already the 1910s, 1920s, the Catholics were printing books. This was printed in 1946 in Passaic, New Jersey. There were also books being printed in Middletown, Pennsylvania. The First Catholic Slovak Union had a printery, the Jednota, as the FCSU is known amongst its members, had a printery, and they catered, they did things, their community needed to learn things and communicate. And here's a list of the books from this time you could buy. You could buy prayer books. You could buy dictionaries, Slovak English, English Slovak. You could buy children's Catholic educational books. There were medical books about the doctors. There were even the storybooks for children and all kinds of things. And you could send in the order form on the back with your payment and get your books. This is a hymnal from the Slovak Lutheran Church in Braddock. And again, you see that this was published, not in Slovakia anymore, but it was Pittsburgh published. And so the community began growing to fill its needs. There were other needs the community had, and these needs involved education. For example, here, this is a membership certificate akin to like a diploma from the Sunday school at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Braddock. But, you know, the kids there would be programs at libraries to read books. There would be outreaches even that the churches would have to draw in people, the young people, to educate them in various categories of things. And you had other needs. People liked music. And in Braddock, they had gypsies from Slovakia. The St. Paul Lutheran Church sat on Talbot Avenue and 11th Street, across from the gate to the steel mill. And below their neighborhood, below the church, was Gypsy Town, as they called it, all the way from 10th Street to the river. And the gypsies would play music. You would hire the gypsies. And this instrument is called a cymbalon. And it's very popular. The gypsies the strings are tuned to different notes, and the gypsies would play them. They would hire these gypsy orchestras to play at weddings, to play at funerals, to play at parties. And these orchestras existed nationwide in all of the Slovak immigrant communities. And they were very popular because the people still had the taste for their own foods and their own musics. And yeah, some of things crossed over. They began to slowly, as the generations passed, take on the taste for American music. These are records made for a Victrola. These are 78 RPMs. They're not like CDs. There's nothing digital about them. It's a whole different world. But these are from the 20s and 30s. This one is Shariška Zabava, Sharishan music. There's also other records. For example, this has a Hungarian title. The people who were buying these often didn't really care about the language. They often liked dancing csardashes, for example, which crossed over between Slovak and Hungarian communities. Here's another one, a Hungarian gypsy orchestra record, because the people loved gypsy music for dancing and partying. And if you didn't have enough money to hire the orchestra, you could play on the Victrola a stack of gypsy records. This one is the Vilagi choir, a choir called the Vilagi choir. And, RCA Victor, they were a big national company that made Victrolas and records. And they were even making records for the ethnic communities. Here's another one. Zabivachka. These are also kind of more Slovak folk musics. And many people enjoyed these gypsy musics. And often the gypsy musics were accompanied by Hungarian singing, but the people didn't care. They liked the gypsy music. For example, the title, some of them on here are the Casino Csardas, the Ala Zatosh Solgoya, and Édes Anyám, which means my dear little mama in Hungarian. But these were like the kind of gypsy music tunes that people would dance. Someone would be cranking the Victrola and playing the music, and they'd be dancing. And they even listened to American records. This is the famous Yes, We Have No Bananas, which everyone knew that song in the 1920s. It was so big in the world of the RCA, Victrola, and old music records. Now, interestingly, many of the artists who performed on these records were from Braddock, from Gypsy Town. There was a dynasty, the Bati family, there were 5 generations of Gypsy musicians who were among the best in the Gypsy musical world, and they came from Košice to Braddock 5 generations ago, and they only played music. They were hired by bands, and they were hired by recording studios. Their bands went all around the United States, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Chicago, playing music, recording music. I am acquainted with a fellow named George Bati, who is a very high-level, talented Gypsy musician. And I showed him some photographs of the records in this box. And he said, oh, my grandfather played the clarinet on this one. And my grandfather's brother played this instrument on this one. And they recorded this in Chicago in the 20s. But these were, these people were creating things they enjoyed and liked for their communities, like the music. They also enjoyed taverns, of which there was no shortage of taverns and alcohol in Braddock. There were hundreds of taverns, and a block up from St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church was a row of taverns between on 12th Street by the Millgate. There were 3 in a row. And there is a cute, funny story about this young lady here in this photograph. This is Sue Martinko. Later, her married name was Molnar. She was from the St. Paul Church in Braddock. She was an only child. Her father was a habitué of a Braddock tavern run by an elderly Irish lady named Delia. And Delia was a professional tavern keeper. The site of the tavern was torn down in the 70s, and the Braddock post office replaced the site of the tavern. But the custom prior to the 1930s was that the factory workers were paid on payday in cash money. And so you would see gangs of their wives waiting outside the factory gates to get to their husbands and to get to the paycheck, the pay money, before the husbands got to the taverns and started drinking, because sadly many drank up their paychecks. And Delia's was a source of cheap beer for these fellows. And Delia herself was a tough old lady. I had encountered her granddaughter, who told me some vignettes of her grandmother's life. Delia was a Catholic woman immigrant from Londonderry in Northern Ireland. And she was a tough cookie. And she never let the men drink on credit. They couldn't run a tab. They had to pay cash money on the spot for every drink. And they used to call her hard-hearted Delia because she never gave credit, and they had to pay before they could drink. So she had her granddaughter, little Jeannie, and Jean was talking to her grandmother one day, and she said, Jeannie, you're never going to take over this business when I'm gone. You're too soft-hearted. It's off to the convent for you. And she sent her off to be a sister of the Daughters of Divine Providence. And that was it, because you didn't dare say no to Delia. But Jean spilled the beans on her dear grandmother Delia. Delia was secretly soft-hearted. During the Great Depression, of course, she still sold booze to the immigrants and liquored up these men, and that's how she made her living. But she would tell them on Friday, have your wife come to the back entrance to the tavern during the lunchtime. And she actually had food parcels that she and Jean prepared together to give to the immigrant women whose husbands were drinking up their pay money in Delia's tavern. So Delia was a little bit soft-hearted too, but she didn't go to the convent. She ran the bar till she died. And taverns were a fact of life in Braddock and in any of these other industrial places that Carnegie made. And he was very, very economics conscious. And in his old age, he became public spirited. I don't believe he had children. He married late in life, no children. And as he aged, he started giving back to communities. He built the museum in Pittsburgh. He built libraries in his factory communities, which were free. The first Carnegie Library was, of course, in Braddock, which made it all possible. This is where his enterprises started. And they expanded to Homestead and a lot of the other communities nearby where he had additional factories. He never gave books for his library. The idea was the people themselves had to donate money and buy the books, but he built the buildings and created buildings. And his early libraries were also akin to social centers. Many of them had swimming pools, fitness rooms. They were sort of like life centers as well as libraries. They would have small stages and small concert halls for multiple community purposes. But with time, you see the transformation of these people, and you see them building community institutions. Now, there are other things. For example, this is 1917. This is the men's brotherhood at the St. Paul Lutheran Church in Braddock. You see how very integrated they are physically in the community. They all look American. They're wearing American style clothing, and yet they're still using their Slovak language, and they're having their Slovak Lutheran Church. These community institutions also did some other things which were interesting. For example, the Sokols, their groups often had sports competitions, and the kids, the competitors, the teams would go from one city to another. They would go from Pittsburgh to Cleveland and compete in Cleveland against the Cleveland kids. Or they would go to New Jersey and compete against the New Jersey people, or to Detroit, or to Milwaukee. And in this era, this isn't unusual, but back then, that was a really big deal. I remember one elderly woman telling me that on her parents' income, they could never have gone anywhere outside of Braddock. They were so poor. But it was through Sokol that they got to see other places and to go somewhere far away. And that was a really big deal. And they made friends among their competitors and in their sports things, and they still have lifelong friendships. Now, there were other things that happened. This is from 1937. There would be conventions. The First Catholic Slovak Union had conventions. So did a lot of the other groups. This is a convention of the evangelical Lutheran churches. And this was held in Ohio. And here's the group from Braddock that went. And these people, these were opportunities to travel. These were opportunities to meet people. And you would never have had these opportunities as a child or a young adult in one of these factory areas. People didn't have vacations. They had no money to do things like that. But this is what people became by the late 40s, early 50s. They'd arrived. This looks just like the Jackie Gleason show from the 50s. And this is the transformation of the people who left Slovakia and arrived in any number of industrial cities, like Braddock, like Cleveland, like Detroit, like Pittsburgh, like Chicago. And they made new lives and they transformed themselves. They were catapulted into Silicon Valley, catapulted, and they rose to the challenge and they remade themselves and made new lives.
Join the Slovak Heritage School of Mr. Štefaník with two songs Dveš bol.
Ahojte, dnes vás naučíme jednoduchú pieseň po slovensky. Opakujte po mne. Hlava, ramena, kolena, palce. Super, ešte raz. Hlava, ramena, kolena, palce. Super. A teraz k tomu pridáme ďalšie slová. Oči, uši, ústa, nos. A ešte raz. Oči, uši, ústa, nos. No výborne, a teraz si to môžeme spolu zaspievať. Hlava, ramena, kolena, palce, kolena, palce, kolena, palce, hlava, ramena, kolena, palce, oči, uši, ústa, nos. Ešte rýchlejšie. Hlava, ramena, kolena, palce, kolena, palce, kolena, palce, hlava, ramena, kolena, palce, oči, uši, ústa, nos. Hlava, ramena, kolena, Výborne. A teraz vás naučíme počítať od 1 do 10 a potom si tie čísla aj spolu zaspievame. Takže 1,
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 a 10.
Otilia Golis is back with another cooking demonstration. This time, we'll learn how to make delicious Slovak pancakes.
Hi everybody, my name is Otilia and I'm from Košice, Slovakia. And today for the Slovak Festival, I'm going to teach you how to make this very simple Slovak dish that we call lokša, or in my parts of Slovakia, we also call it krompeník. It could be served as a side dish for the meat, or it could be served on its own as a sweet dish. So I'm going to make it the sweet version today. It's very simple, only requires 2 ingredients, and it's cooked potatoes, which I already cooked and cooled down. So probably just these bigger cubes. I only did 1 medium potato, just enough to show it to you today. And flour, that's all we need. And once it's done, it's very dry, so you need some kind of fat. When people serve it with meat, they love to cover it in duck fat or goose fat. I don't have that stuff at home, and I don't really like it, so I'm just going with the butter, and I'm also gonna make it a sweet version, so butter is better for that. So, just got these potatoes, and that's all I need, potatoes and flour. So I'm going to mash them. I'm going to just use the plain potato masher. And just gonna make it really smooth. I don't want any big chunks in there. For 1 medium potato, I'm going to use about half a cup of flour, and I'm going to work it in to make nice and smooth dough. I'm also preheating my pan. This is a non-stick big pan. It needs to be hot. Alright, so let's see what we got here. This looks pretty good. And this is a very simple potato masher. I actually did get this one from the dollar store, and works great. Okay. Looks pretty smooth to me. I'm going to add flour, nothing else, just potatoes and flour for the dough. So I have about half cup here, and I'm gonna start with a little bit less and work it in. You want it just like dry enough to be able to roll it out. It can't be too sticky, but also you don't want it too dry. All right, it's about ready. So this is what I'm looking for. Not super sticky, but also I wouldn't want it too dry with too much flour. So I didn't use the whole half cup, but I'm going to use this flour next for rolling it out. All right, so I'm back. I washed my hands, and I'm going to roll it out. I did not use the whole half cup, but I'm going to use that for rolling out. So I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces. I'll start with the first one. My butter is melting, so I can put that on the side. All right, I'm going to roll this out. Good amount of flour, some on top, and I'm going to roll it out pretty thin. We're aiming for the round shape, but whatever you get there will work. Shake up the flour, just throw it in. It's pretty hot, it's preheated, and it's dry. There is no oil, you want dry pan. And while this cooks, I'm going to roll out another one. Only takes a few minutes. You will see it will start puffing up, and that means that it's working well. All right, so it's been about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to flip it. All right, and now it's going to puff it up. Do you see? And we're looking for these brown spots too. So I'm gonna give it another 2 minutes or so on this side. Look how cool it is. It's coming up. All right, guys, so it's been about 2 minutes. I'm going to check on the other side, and it looks pretty cooked. I'm going to place it on a plate. We'll put it on the side, and I'm going to put another one in. make it too big, so it's a little hard to place it in. Next time, maybe I'll go for the smaller circle. Alright, so again, we're gonna do about 3 minutes on one side and 2 minutes on the other side. Now this one is ready. I need to get the brush. Got my brush. I got my melted butter. And let me put it here so I can show it to you better. And I'm going to cover this loksha, which is pretty dry. Because remember, it's made in a dry pan. I'm just going to cover it in the butter generously. All right, look at these pretty colors now. So this is how it looks. It's not a perfect circle. I can never get them look really pretty. Okay, and as I said, it could be served as a side dish, usually for roast duck or roast goose, but I don't make that much. I like it sweet. So I'm going to do butter, and then I'm going to cover it in powdered sugar. And also really great way to serve it is put prune jelly or prune butter on it and roll it up like crepes. That's really good too. Or poppy seeds. We love poppy seeds with sugar. So this is covered in sugar, and I'm going to take a piece and I'm going to try it right now. Let's see. It tastes really, really good. So I hope you give it a try. Super simple. Again, this is called loksha or krompeni. Thank you. So good.
Hello. Have you ever wondered if your surname is Slovak and what the meaning behind your family last name is? Did you know that your last name can be a strong link to your past, to your ancestors, and it can help you learn where they came from and what their life was like?
Did your family come to the US from Slovakia, Czechoslovakia? Did they escape from the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic? Or did they immigrate even earlier from the Austria-Hungarian territory of modern-day Slovakia?
If any of this is your case, I'm sure you are already eager to learn more about this topic. That's why we decided to prepare a short lecture for this year's festival and have asked you to send us your family last names on our Facebook page. Thank you for more than 250 comments.
This encourages us to focus on topics like this one more in the future. So let's begin.
In Slovakia, we have a wide variety of beautiful last names. Here is a list of the 10 most frequent ones as of December 2020.
Now, these names may not look Slovak, they might look Hungarian. That's because in Slovakia, for almost 1,000 years, they were under Hungarian rule. Therefore, these last names are written using Hungarian orthographic rules.
Interestingly, many of them actually have Slavic or Indo-European roots. Hungarians borrowed words from the local Slavic population, especially those words connected to agriculture, Christianity, and local professions that they did not have.
As seen in the slide, the example of Kovac, K-O-V-A-C or K-O-V-A-C-S, is actually the most common last name here. If you notice, it shows up in this list twice, once in a Slovak spelling and once transliterated into Hungarian, which is at the bottom as K-O-V-A-C-S. If we count up both forms of Kovac, this becomes the most common last name in Slovakia. More than 42,000 people have this last name.
In the right column, you will see the feminine form of these surnames. The typical suffix for this is ova, which indicates that this is a female family member. For example, a mother, wife, or daughter.
The feminine suffix can also just be an A. If the last name is an adjective, for example, mali, meaning small, As we see here, the last name takes on the feminine form of that adjective, mala.
Slobodný and slobodná mean single, but it originally comes from the word sloboda, which means freedom.
And every married person understands that implication here.
On the other hand, there are two forms to say married, ženatý and vydata.
Ženatý is for males, and it comes from the word žena. It shows that someone has taken a wife.
Whereas vydata literally means given. Many cultures still see a bride as leaving her own family and joining her husband's while taking up his family name. But in Slovakia, this is changing. Many women are beginning to keep their maiden names upon marriage or to not add the suffix ova.
Now, this can cause problems in cultures where these endings do not exist. For example, when I married in Slovakia, my wife's last name was officially Sorensenova. To avoid confusion, we changed it to Sorensen before we moved to America.
All right, let's take a look at the four most common ways the last names possibly came about. Firstly, some last names are based on an ethnonym, like Horvát or Tóth. Secondly, some are based on occupation, like the last name circled here, Kováč, Varga, Sabo, Molnár, and again Kováč. Thirdly, these circled names are based on nicknames. Nať, which means big or tall, and Balok, which means left-handed or bad. The fourth column shows names based on a first name, like Balázs, as you see here.
This makes perfect sense because one name was enough, because everyone knew everybody else in the village. These members of different communities might refer to each other by the name of the tribe or the clan that they hailed from. As populations began to grow and people lived in larger and larger villages, it became necessary to distinguish between them. One of the most important differentiating characteristics was the person's occupation. So people began using additional information to identify people, such as the name of the tribe, clan, or even the ethnicity and occupation of the person they were talking about. Because of this, we are going to focus on these two groups for this presentation. Hey, Renata, let's talk about last names based on ethnonyms. What exactly is an ethnonym?
An ethnonym is a name given to a particular ethnic group of people. A great example would be the last name Tóth. Hungarians use this word to name the Slavic ethnic groups living in Hungary and eventually use it almost exclusively to mean a Slovak.
Oh, so even though it looks Hungarian, it still actually means Slovak?
Exactly. And look at the other surnames of ethnonymic origin. Horvát or Chorvát means Croat, Croatian. Czech means Czech or Bohemian. And here you see many different versions of Poliak or Lech, Lengyel. Each means Pole or Polish. Rusnak and these other forms all mean Rusin. Uhor, Uhrin are the general terms for a citizen of the Hungarian part of the Austrian Empire. Magyar refers only to ethnic Hungarians, not Slovaks, and other ethnicities in Hungary.
Let's talk about last names based on an occupation. We have already mentioned one profession, Kováč. Kováč is a Proto-Slavic word meaning blacksmith. The forms that you guys sent to us through Facebook are Kováč, Kováčik, Kovalčik, Kovalsky, Kovačič. Also in Slovakia, we have Schmidt or Schmidt, which you probably hear as close to Smith. These are German words for the same occupation as Kováč. It's also where we get the English last name of Smith. It seems at one point everyone had a hammer and an anvil. Slovakia's first president was named Kováč.
Varga originally referred to tanners, but soon meant shoemaker or cobbler. In Slovak, we find the last name Garbiar, which really means tanner. And then we find the Proto-Slavic Švec, Ševc, Ševčík, which was a cobbler. Schuster is from the German word for cobbler, and Čižmár is really a bootmaker. All of these are like the English shoemaker, or if you would like a famous reference, the German Schumacher. The second Slovak president was Schuster.
The next last name is Sabo, or tailor. Its etymology is from the Old French talier, or cutter. The Slovak last names Krajčír or Krajčovič share a similar etymology, since the Proto-Slavic krajati means to cut.
The final last name from our list is Molnár or Mlinar. Both mean miller. The base for all the forms we meet in Slovak, German, Hungarian, and English is molina and molitoris in Latin. Mlinar comes from the Slavic mlin or mill, and you can see the different forms of those last names here. Mlinar, Mlinka, Mlinarik, Mlinarčík, Minarik, Minar, Minarček.
You can see that most of these professions were prevalent throughout the European continent. Everyone had a need for a blacksmith, a miller, a shoemaker, or other common occupations.
Some other last names we find in America are here. We don't have time to delve into them in any depth, but here is a quick overview.
Gach means weaver. They worked on looms.
Sedlák, gazda, hospodár are agricultural workers, either farmers or farmhands.
Debnar or bednar means cooper or a barrel maker.
Another important profession we can't forget to mention is šenkár or krčmár and its forms. They are bartenders.
Of course, there is one last name we obviously cannot forget, Dr. Kamenarova. That would be Kamenar. It means stonemason.
Yes, it's me. Perfect. We really hope that you'll learn something about Slovak last names today. If we didn't get to you, it's because we cannot possibly cover them all in one sitting.
We hope to do another presentation and get more of them. As you can see, your own last name is steeped in history.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Pittsburgh Slovakians were founded in 1955 by Roman Niznik. Directors Sue and Rudy Andrejko have been keeping Slovak traditions alive in the Pittsburgh area for over 60 years. Here is their performance from this year's September Fest at the National Slovak Society Heritage Museum in McMurray, PA.
śpiewają. Mam kraje kochanko na radości zamku. Dobre ja już znam. Mam kraje kochanko na radości zamku. Dobre ja już znam. cigani na perinie, bijuše cigani na perinie. Bijuše cigani na perinie, bijuše cigani na perinie. Cigani, cigani, ne biceše, cigani, cigani, ne biceše. Macigat na paperini rozseše, macigat na paperini rozseše. Macigat na paperini rozseše, macigat na paperini rozseše. Mala som krajera, w najcenniejsi od nas. Moja mać słyszała, że to straci obraz. Rosaria, Maria na biała rozkwitała. Nasza Aniczka Lęca, Janiczka by się wydawała. Rosaria, Maria na biała rozkwitała. Nasza Aniczka Lęca, Janiczka by się wydawała.
Greetings, I'm Joe Stefka Jr., President and CEO of the National Slovak Society. The National Slovak Society was founded right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1890 as the first Slovak Fraternal Benefit Society. Since 1890, the National Slovak Society has been providing financial security to our members and their families. We offer low-cost life insurance and high-yielding annuities. Today I bring you greetings from the NSS Heritage Museum, located in our home office in McMurray, Pennsylvania. We at the National Slovak Society are proud to once again serve as a sponsor for the Slovak Heritage Festival. On behalf of the officers, board of directors, home office staff, and our 37,000 members across the country, I would offer congratulations and best wishes to the University of Pittsburgh Slovak Studies Program and Slovak Student Club on the 31st anniversary of the Slovak Heritage Festival. Thank you for all that you do to promote our Slovak heritage.
Pittsburgh Area Slovak Folk Ensemble.
The Pittsburgh Area Slovak Folk Ensemble, or PAS, is one of Pittsburgh's premier ethnic performing groups and has recreated the splendor of Slovakia through folk music, song, and dance. Their presentation this year exhibits the technique, athleticism, and artistry of the dances and music from Detva, Lipto, and Sumiac regions of Slovakia.
name is Joe Vilagi. I'm the national president of Sokol USA, which is a large Slovak American sports and fraternal benefits society selling life insurance and annuities and other financial products. And we give you our greetings for a very successful Slovak Festival 2021.
Hello. The Department of Slavic Languages and Literatures at the University of Pittsburgh is home to the only Slovak Studies program in the United States. For over 30 years, students at Pitt have been able to take courses in the Slovak language and Slovak culture and to pursue an interdisciplinary minor in Slovak Studies. The Slovak Studies program at Pitt was established thanks to the support of the local Slovak American community and thanks to the generosity of 5 Slovak fraternal organizations. At present, the Slovak Studies program at Pitt is also supported by a generous endowment that was established by the late Dr. Martin Votrova. Students from other colleges and universities in the region are able to cross-register to take Slovak courses at Pitt. Over the years, the Slovak Studies program at Pitt has welcomed students from such nearby schools as Carnegie Mellon University, Duquesne University, Chatham University, Carlow University, and La Roche University. This year we have some exciting news to share with you. In the fall 2021 term, we were able to add remote engagement options to our entire sequence of Slovak language courses. This means that this semester, interested students not only from the University of Pittsburgh's branch campuses, but also from locations throughout the United States, are able to connect to our in-person courses remotely 100% of the time and to take full advantage of every aspect of these courses.
Though this pandemic has been hard on us all, it's been fairly beneficial to the Slovak program here at Pitt. When COVID first hit, I thought my Slovak class would be the hardest to adapt to on the screen, but it happened to be the best. Through games and through the technology we have, active participation wasn't lost and the regular dynamic of the classroom stayed. Now that we can have these online classes, people from all over the US can join the Slovak program and take classes from the comfort of their home. In class last year, we had someone from New Jersey, and this year we have someone on the West Coast in California.
Dobrý deň, volám sa Amelia. I've been taking Slovak for only a couple weeks now, and I'm so surprised at what I've been able to learn so far. What I find the most interesting is that the pronunciation is so much different than any other language that I've studied. It's easy to catch on since everything's phonetic, and I've been enjoying it so far.
Of course, those who are eligible for participation in the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute are welcome to take all of our courses, and a good number of such students enroll in our Slovak courses every year.
I'm currently studying Advanced Slovak at the University of Pittsburgh with Renata Kamenarova. I've been studying the Slovak language my whole life because I was proud to be raised by my immigrant Slovak grandparents.
I'm studying the Slovak language at the University of Pittsburgh. Both of my parents spoke Slovak when I was growing up. I encourage you to learn the Slovak language and visit.
What I would emphasize is that the Slovak Studies program at Pitt offers our students a dynamic, interdisciplinary exploration of the Slovak language, history, and culture. This training prepares students for a diverse range of careers, very much including the prospect of studying and working abroad. We invite you to learn more about our program and to contact us should you have any questions.
This academic year, we are offering Slovak language classes at 3 levels: elementary, intermediate, and advanced. And in the coming years, we anticipate that our curriculum will feature exciting English language courses on various aspects of the Slovak cultural tradition, including such courses as Slovak, Czech, and Central European cinema, and cultural history of Slovakia. Besides our regular academic program, we promote the language, culture, and history of Slovakia through various events. If you want to learn more about our courses and be informed about our program and events, please join our Facebook page, Slovak at Pitt.
Hello, my name is Christine Metal, and I'd like to tell you about my journey in the Slavic department at the University of Pittsburgh, especially as it relates to the Slovak Studies program. Basically, I think that Oscar Swan and I are the memory or the source of memory of the program. We have been there the longest, since 1975. And when I came there as a student, I worked in the department as a work study student. So I was very aware of all the courses and all the instructors. The very first Slovak teacher we had at the university was Father Ivan Dornic. He was there before 1975, and by the time I had arrived there, we had hired another teacher, a graduate student in our program named Margie Bayuk. But Father Dornic was the first, and then Margaret Bayuk taught also in the program. Marta Kellety was one of the instructors that we had. And after Marta, I believe Sylvia Lawrence was our teacher. So we went through quite a line of instructors over the years. And by the 80s, we started getting Fulbright scholars to teach in the program. So it was very wonderful opportunity to have people from Slovakia coming. There was a Dr. Pavel Fetko and Dr. Verona Horvatova. Branjo Hohel also taught in the program, and Jana Hutova. So they carried us through to almost the 1990s. And in the late 1880s, we had hired our very first full-time professor of Slovak studies, who was Dr. Martin Votruba. His position came about because we had established an endowment fund. 5 Slovak fraternal organizations were brought together by the chairman of the department, who then was Dr. Oscar Swan. He had written to all of them and had this proposal that because there are so many Slovak Americans in Pittsburgh, it would be a great idea to establish a Slovak studies program, and it would be the only one in the United States. The leaders of the fraternal organizations found this to be a very fascinating and plausible plan, and somehow they all came together and established the endowment, each one donating a certain amount of money over a number of years to reach the $500,000 mark, so that we would always have a full-time professor of Slovak studies at the University of Pittsburgh. With the arrival of Dr. Votruba to the program, he began developing different Slovak courses, not only language, but culture and history and film. And this attracted quite a few students into the program. Over the years, it grew, and the students formed a club. They were brought together and decided that they wanted to bring Slovak language and culture to the people, and also to attract more students to study the language and culture. One of the ideas they had, in collaboration with Dr. Votruba, was to start a Slovak Heritage Festival. This was in the very early 1990s. I believe 1991 was the first festival that was established. The fraternal organizations that contributed and started the program basically at the University of Pittsburgh through their contributions were the First Catholic Slovak Union, which is also known as the Enota, the Ladies Pennsylvania Slovak Catholic Union, the First Slovak Ladies Association, the Slovak Catholic Sokol, and also the First Wreath of the Free Eagle, which was later absorbed in 1997 by the National Slovak Society. which became a member of the endowment as well. In fact, one of the professors that we had was a visiting Fulbright scholar from Slovakia named Stefan Bastin, and he was with our program for 2 years and actually was one of the first performers in the very first Slovak festival that the student club had put together. I remember the students came to my office looking for a location, and they had settled on using Pozvar Hall for the first festival, and that's where it was held. There was food and performances by Dr. Bastin and another dance group. In the following years, the festival was moved to the Cathedral of Learning, and each year the festival grew. We added more and more activities and performances and lectures, vendors, and usually between 1,000 and 2,000 people would come to the festival, which was always held on the first Sunday in November. This went on for 31 years now, and we're very proud that, the festival has continued. I served as the coordinator for it, and the students would be involved every year in helping to put the program together.
Hi, to all who tune in to the 2021 Slovak Heritage Festival. Amanda Rejek, President of the First Catholic Slovak Union. We were founded in 1890 in Cleveland, Ohio. We have 48,000 members with $1.5 billion in assets. We are proud to support the Slovak Heritage Festival and continue to provide support to Slovak culture and activities throughout the United States and Canada. The First Catholic Slovak Union was the original supporter of the Slovak language program at the University of Pittsburgh. I look forward again to the 2022 festival, and Open can be held live again in Pittsburgh. I'd like to sign off by wishing everyone Dobry dnia a z Bogom. Goodbye, and God be with you.
Cześć. Ja uczyłem się polskiego języka w Pittsburghu.
Hi, I participated in the Summer Language Institute twice. The first time was 8 weeks, the domestic program here in Pittsburgh, and the second time was 5 weeks here and 5 weeks in Moscow.
Our domestic programs take place here in the urban, culturally rich and diverse environment of University of Pittsburgh's main campus in Oakland. We also host a number of study abroad programs in such amazing cities as Moscow, Prague, Krakow, Bratislava, and Podgorica, Montenegro. In addition to the intensive coursework, students get to engage in a number of cultural enrichment activities.
SLI is affordable for everyone. 90% of the students who apply get either partial or full funding.
Изучайте jazyky s nami летом.
Šopkovaná je, inšaallah. Uvidíme se v letě.
Larry Kozlowski has been doing ethnic craft demonstrations in the Pittsburgh area for decades. He will demonstrate how to make traditional straw paintings, slamene obrazy.
Welcome to the virtual Slovak Heritage Festival, a time when we bring everybody together, their customs, their language, the music, the singing, and the dancing, and of course, the food, which is the best part. Today we're going to talk about straw, which in Slovak folk culture is very important. It's that straw that they took to put on the roofs of those houses so that the rain would stay out and they would be able to stay warm and raise their families in those houses, those cottages. It's that straw that we put under the Christmas Eve table, on the floor. It recalls to us that birth of Jesus, who was born in a manger, not in a fancy hotel, but in a manger, with all that straw that kept him warm. So we put that straw on our table, under our table. And straw is also taken, and beautiful ornaments were made to decorate those beautiful Christmas trees. Those branches that were brought into the home and decorated with apples and walnuts and all sorts of little candies wrapped in tissue paper. And they also decorated it with beautiful stars that were again made from straw. Well, in addition to that, they also began to make a variety of pictures and paintings. They couldn't run down to the Walmart or Woolworths or even Murphy's, which isn't around anymore, and buy things. They created them in their homes, again, from the straw. Here we see some beautiful flowers that were created by taking these pieces of straw and putting them in water, soaking them, and flattening them out to make a veneer. And they began to lay that piece by piece, just like you'd see a fine inlay on a piece of furniture with wood. This was the poor people's way of decorating. They just used straw. Here is a delicious, nutritious tulip. Here is a rose that was done from using that straw. Even in some of the churches in the mountains, oftentimes we would refer to them as Greckie Katolickie, the Greek Catholic Church, or Byzantine Church now we call them. And this whole set of royal doors in front of the altar was all done inlaying that design using this straw. The same technique we're going to show you today to create a little picture. Again, folk costumes were then also taken and created using that straw, much like little kids that have a dress-up doll. They dressed up the doll, but they used straw to make all that beautiful folk costumes that they were wearing. Here is also a box, and the box has some straw that was taken and put into the box. I have a box right over here. I'm going to show you an actual box that shows you with that. Here's a picture of a box, but here is an actual box, which all that inlay on that box is made using nothing but straw. Sometimes it's light straw, sometimes it's dark straw, sometimes it's straw that has been taken and it's been burnt by the sun. Sometimes it's been taken and just using an iron to burn it to make it brown also. So they had boxes, and those boxes were used for all kinds of things. Wooden boxes they kept spices in and jewelry and money. They were a special place to put special things. They also began to put them and decorate Easter eggs with them by cutting tiny pieces of this straw and gluing it onto the top of a colored or dyed egg. They made beautiful eggs that were something so simple, but something so beautiful and so valuable. Here we see some more of the eggs. It almost looks like gold because of the way that it is gleaming and glistening. Besides eggs, they also began to decorate holy pictures with them. They couldn't have gold icons like they saw in church or beautiful holy pictures. So they began to create their own holy picture by taking and putting straw to decorate. Here we see the Blessed Mother and baby Jesus. They decorated all of her cloak, her clothing, her crown with little pieces of straw that were cut and adhered piece by piece. Another form, another one of these poor man's icons to hang in their house. They said, well, how did this all start? It's very interesting because this started during the Napoleonic era. Napoleon had imprisoned many, many people. He put them in jail, and these people had nothing to do. So what they did is they had them take the straw and make some of these beautiful paintings, some of these beautiful boxes, because they could have all this. It's much like equating this to prisoners making license plates of many years ago. They had these people making these things, and they would take them and sell them, because straw, stuff that you threw away or took and would take and put into the ground or feed to the animals. But by having that straw and teaching these prisoners how to create this, it started in England, it was in France, it was in Germany, it was in Moravia, in the Czech Republic, and also in Czechoslovakia when we had that country, among the Slovak people, the Ukraine, White Russia, up into Lithuania. Straw was something everyone had. And they could either make beautiful ornaments or beautiful pictures. Again, here is another one of those beautiful doors in the church that was all encrusted with straw. And by taking that straw and having it face different directions, it would catch the light and it would reflect in different ways. Much like when you're driving down the street at night, a country road, and you see those reflectors, and when your light hits them, they light up and they glow. This straw in that church would glow from any of the candlelight that would be there. And it was a way of poor people giving their homage and their blessing and their creativity to God. They didn't have fancy jewels and money, and they just had plain old straw, which we again look at and throw away. Again, the straw first would be taken, and as we look at how straw is put together, the further down the bottom we get, it gets thicker and thicker. Now, wheat straw has about a good 8 to 9 inches between each of these nodules. There's also rye straw, which is longer, and there's also oat straw, which can be used. But they would take and cut that off, and then they would take their scissors or knives or splitters, and they would take and insert it in one end, making sure they cut where all of the joints are, and they would take it and insert it in there, and by carefully taking and sliding it through, what it does is it will take, and this then can be taken and opened up, put in some water, and it will be ironed out or flattened. So that what you had was, as you see, that makes a nice strip. It would make a strip similar to one of these strips, which is the finished product to be doing these beautiful inlaid pictures. Again, you see an iron, they would take it, they would press it under a book. If they were making eggs, they would not put it in the water, but they would take it and they would curve it by taking a knife or a scissor blade, and they would curl it. Because then when they curled it, it would go around the egg much easier when they glued it onto the egg. So they're little tricks, tricks of the trade, so to speak. But they would take them and dye them in different colors. And they could do multicolored flowers, multicolored designs on those boxes we talked about. They would have green and brown and yellow. What we're going to do first is we're going to make some trees. These are what the trees are going to look like when they're done. And we're simply going to take and glue together some of these little pieces of straw. We can use glue, and we can use a brush to brush all those pieces and glue them on. Or I've had some that I already had to put some glue on already. And I've taken and I folded the paper right down the middle to give me the center line for the tree. What I'm going to do is take a couple of these, and I'm going to take and cut them into pieces, about maybe 2 inches. And by taking them and cutting them and laying them side by side, much like if you were going to put a hardwood floor in your house, you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some planking, and they would all fit together piece by piece. That's exactly what we're going to do here. 1, 2, and I'm overlapping them just a little bit. 3, 4. That's going to be part of our tree, but what we're going to do is take this as a brayer. This takes and rolls it out. It'll make it sticky all the better and all the more even. We're going to take and cut that part out of our tree. And this is going to be half the tree. We'll put that over here just to rest. We still have another fold here. We're going to take this once again by taking and putting along the fold, and we're going to do it on the other side now. There's our right and left side of the tree. What we're going to do now is cut along that line. Once again, we're going to cut along that line. Going to flatten it just a little bit with our brayer. And then what we're going to do next is put it together just like this. And we're going to take one of our brown pieces, which looks just like the tree. This is the tree stem. We're going to put that on there. What that's going to do is that's going to hold it all together. And then we're going to take our scissors and trim it. We're going to trim one side. We're going to trim the other side. And now you're going to see, through the magic of a pair of scissors, how we're going to take and make this into a tree. And what we've created is one of several pine trees that we're going to take and include in our picture. We have a bunch of pine trees already made in advance, so when we actually paint our picture by putting pieces together, everything will fit together and be nice. We have our trees, and now we have our house. And the house is just a very simple sketch. I did it on graph paper because that keeps the lines all straight, and you can space it out so it's a little more even as we work with it. We're going to take and begin by putting together the sides of this mountaineer cottage. And what I'm going to do is take and cut some of this, cutting along the roof. One by one, we'll take these pieces and simply take them and apply them to this little building that we're going to create. And using an X-Acto knife or razor blade, I'm just going to cut it off at 1/2 inch. Then the next one I'm going to take and put it there, and I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. You'll see what this is going to give us, a rustic look to this cottage. And it's going to make it more realistic. Once again, another one of these. And what you see is going to happen is, this is going to begin to look like a mountaineer's hut or a mountaineer's house, which has all sorts of logs in it. You see, we're beginning to see the log cabin look to it. And again, because the light's on it, it makes it shine, it makes it shimmer. And again, we're cutting it and mitering it by cutting it with that blade. I'm simply, holding it with my finger, cutting into it. And what you can see, what we've created is, we've created the design that shows the straw of the roof now. Okay, now we have one last set we're going to do, and that's going to be back to this one. Okay, we're going to take this now, and we're going to give it a little more glue so that that glue can help hold it on because it's been drying for a while. You can use either a tacky glue, which is piece by piece, and you can do with a toothpick. I happen to use some spray glue, which I like because it's quick and it's easy. It does a very good job of holding things together. Now we're going to begin to assemble all the parts of our picture. Since we have everything done, we have it all put together. We simply have a piece of paper here that's black. You can use any color you like. We put that down. We're going to first of all take our mountain cottage. We're going to put it and lay it on our background, whatever that happens to be. And again, we can roll it just to make sure it's done. Okay, now, next let's see, we have some trees. We'll put one tree right there, as you can see. Now we're going to take another piece of straw and we'll cut it right about here. Make sure we get it to adhere to all the different layers of straw because we have more than one layer, remember. See, by just taking those little pieces and putting them, we put a nice little fence to the cottage's yard. Over on this other side, we're going to do something a little different. We're take off this piece of brown out of here. Okay. And every single house and yard usually had some kind of a little oftentimes it was something to remember those departed ancestors. Oftentimes these crosses and shrines were at the wayside or at the crossroads of villages because they were to guard those villages from evil that would be coming through those crossways. Again, we cut the strips. Again, you must press it in here because now we're going and we're laying that straw against multi-levels of straw because of all the straw layers that we're building up underneath. Here we have the beginnings of a mountain cottage. Again, with the fences and the trees and the cottage itself. But what's a cottage? You have to have a way to get to that cottage. So what we're going to do is we put our last little step in. Then we take our frame that we have here. Hope you've enjoyed this art. Again, the people were very crafty. They left nothing to be wasted. But by making these pictures, they could create a little market to sell them as souvenirs. Sometimes they would have different type of village events that were depicted in this. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the Slovak Festival and go back and check out your own heritage. Try some of those things that you see there to make your home a Slovak home. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Molesky, and I'm National President and CEO of First Catholic Slovak Ladies Association of the United States of America, now FCSLA Life. We again congratulate the Slovak Studies program at the University of Pittsburgh on this 31st anniversary of the Slovak Festival. I myself am a graduate of the university where I studied several languages here in the Slavic department, including Slovak. Our society was an original co-founder of the Slovak Endowment at the university, where we are very proud that we joined with the other Slovak American fraternals to fund the endowment from its inception. We have helped provide the funding for the professorship which teaches the Slovak language today. Over the years, the Slovak language has been taught to thousands of students at the university through this program. So again, we congratulate the Slovak program for its festival today and extend those congratulations from our members, board, and myself. Thank you again.
Milí priatelia, srdečne vás pozdravujem zo Slovenska. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first express my gratitude to the organizers of this festival for inviting me and for having this opportunity to share with you a few words about political situation in Slovakia. I prepared some slides that I would like to share with you, so let's move to the presentation. First, let's say a few words on political system in Slovakia. Unlike in United States, where president plays important role and he is the most prominent politician in the country, Slovakia is parliamentary democracy, and that puts parliament in the very heart of political system. Parliament has a power to issue a death sentence to the government. Any reform or political change proposal has to be approved by the parliament. And I have to admit that Slovak president is less dependent on parliament than government. However, the powers of the president are very limited compared to, for example, United States counterpart. So political system in Slovakia established supremacy of National Council of the Slovak Republic, Slovak Parliament. However, what we can witness in reality is the supremacy of political parties. This dominance of political parties is structurally supported by the way how electoral system works in Slovakia. Proportional electoral system allows even smaller or newly created parties to run in the elections and be successful. And it also favors coalition governments. Therefore, many times parties with less popular support are powerful from strategic point of view because they have this coalition potential. And vice versa. It happens a few times that big parties with relatively large support from the public would lack the coalition potential, and they would not be able to create a majority in the parliament. Another important factor that contributes to the supremacy of political parties in the system is the role that parties play. It's a role of gatekeepers. It is usually party chairmanship that decides who will get in party candidate list, and person without such party support or support from the chairmanship has no chance to run for elections and get into the parliament. However, speaking about political parties in Slovakia, one can also speak about the curse of political parties. Party system in Slovakia is highly unstable and makes politics less readable. As some scholars pointed out, Slovakia is obsessed with novelty when it comes to political representation. Flow of voters among parties has been on increase and is high even in comparison with other countries of the region with the same proportional electoral system, like, for example, Czech Republic or Poland. So Slovakia is a country with very young party system compared to other countries. And for example, in last elections, only 30% of electoral votes went to parties that have some political tradition, meaning that their existence would last at least 10 years prior to the elections. This novelty of political parties and their chance to get into the parliament is well documented also in this table. As you can see, with the exception of the elections in 2006, all other elections were the ones where brand new political parties that were created just a few weeks or months prior to the elections actually get seats in the parliament. A side effect of this popular tolerance or even appreciation for the novelty of political parties is a high potential for party segmentation or fragmentation. For members of the parliament to create a new political party is not a risky business. Almost all political parties in the current parliament were established actually in this way. At this slide, you can see a few examples of last year parties splits. There is a case of Smer Social Democrats and newly created party Hlas of Peter Pellegrini. This is also the case of centrist party Za ľudí and newly created platform of Maria Kolíková. And this is also the case of far-right party, People's Party, Our Slovakia, and a newly created party Republika, done by former vice chairman of the party. So in 2020 elections, actually 6 political parties were successful and entered the parliament. However, today we can speak about 10 political parties that have representation in parliament, even if not official recognition, because their members of parliament are labeled as unaffiliated to any caucus. And it is worth to mention that this fragmentation of political caucuses has begun as early as 2 months after the election. As a result, party system in Slovakia is highly unstable and unpredictable with shifting majority. But on the other side, it also helps prevent the majoritarian or illiberal model of democracy that is on advance in other countries of Visegrad region. So to some extent, unstable party system can be perceived as beneficial to liberal democracy. Another stabilizing element in preserving liberal democracy in Slovakia is the president. President is directly elected by people, so he or she stands somehow above political parties and their unstable tendencies. Current president Zuzana Čaputová contributes to the overall stabilization in the country from the foreign policy perspective as well as from the rule of law perspective. Speaking about foreign policy, she strongly supports a long-term commitment of Slovakia as a member state of the European Union and of the NATO. And speaking about the rule of law perspective, she regularly emphasizes our commitment to liberal democratic values, like, for example, during her official visit in Hungary, or when she openly criticized China for human rights violation. When looking at her performance pro domo, then she, for example, repeatedly vetoed or issued a veto on the laws for their incompatibility with the constitution, even if she personally supported the intention or core idea behind such law proposals, like, for example, in case of Lex Harabin, the proposal that aimed to abandon judges to run for the elections as politicians while at the same time keeping their position in judiciary. And we can speak about stabilization effect even in terms of gaining and preserving social trust. Since 2019, when Čaputová has been elected into the presidential office, she is most trustworthy politician in Slovakia with overall support of more than 50% of population, while other politicians reach the level of trust in between 30–40%. So now let's move from the political elite to the political topics. Speaking about Slovak politics, we can distinguish 3 main periods of contemporary politics. First would be the matriarch period, when nationalism and illiberalism were the main issues in political contestation. Then the later period would be the Robert Fico period, when the main political debate was about the extent and scope of economic reforms and try to preserve or stabilize social security system in the country. And last period, or the newest period, is more concerned with the quality of governance and corruption issues in the country. And those two issues were also the main topics of the campaign in the last elections in 2020. And there were most crucial issues also for the winner of the elections, movement Olano of Igor Matovic. So there is no surprise that such issues are of importance to the new government as well. However, pandemic situation and mainly restrictions imposed to prevent the spread of COVID infection quickly became equally important issue, and they contributed to the overall polarization of the society. And also what needs to be said is that these big issues or main concerns in the country are regularly overshadowed by personal conflicts among leaders of coalition parties, and that contributes to the overall decrease of popular support for current government. To conclude this brief outline of political situation in Slovakia, let's have a look on challenges that are ahead of Slovakia in upcoming years. If we look at it from short-term perspective, clearly the most pressing issue would be economic recovery and stabilization due to the pandemic impact on public finances. Also, the problems with corruption and malfunctioning of judiciary and police authorities in the country are of importance. Then taking the long-term perspective, what is the issue is vitality of social system that is in place today in the country. Due to aging population, the reforms, mainly patient reform, should be at the forefront of political interest, as this current system is unsustainable from the long-term perspective. And last but not least, politicians and social scientists should or could not ignore a threat to social cohesion in Slovakia. Today's society is significantly polarized, and modern technologies make it easier to feed such polarization. Therefore, one of the biggest challenges would be also how to deal with such threats and promote social bonding. And to conclude this presentation, I would like to put into spotlight some of the rankings of Slovakia and also compare them with the rest of the region, Visegrad region. Current evaluation of political regime in Slovakia is quite positive. As you can see, Slovakia ranked as a consolidated democracy. And when we look at the economic prognosis, they don't look so bad. They look quite promising. So in 2 years' time, we should be able to somehow recover from this pandemic. We will see how this will actually work, but with this positive outlook, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon. My name is Kati Chuman. I'm the director of the Nationality Rooms and Intercultural Exchange Programs. I'm very pleased to speak with you about the Summer 2022 Global Learning Scholarships. The Nationality Rooms were designed to represent and celebrate the cultures of various ethnic groups that settled in Allegheny County and were integral to the building of the Cathedral of Learning. The 31 nationality rooms located on the first and third floors of the Cathedral of Learning are a community space where visitors are invited to experience the rich heritage of the communities who inspired and supported their creation. To this day, each nationality room committee that designed, planned, and raised funds to build a classroom remains an active partner on the Pitt campus and in the community. The nationality committees, comprised of community volunteers, organize educational and cultural programming, and raise funds for scholarships to support intercultural learning opportunities for Pitt students to honor an ideal, education through cultural exchange. There are two scholarships that may be of most interest to students participating in the Slovak Heritage Festival. The Czechoslovak Room Committee Scholarship is at the undergraduate or graduate level. One scholarship will be awarded for the summer 2022 in the amount of $4,500. The Stanley Prestrodnik Memorial Scholarship is offered at the undergraduate or graduate level, and there are several scholarships in the summer of 2022 available in the range of $3,000 to $4,500. There are other undergraduate scholarships available through the nationality rooms and intercultural exchange programs that are not specific to a location. You can find more information at www.nationalityrooms.pitt.edu. I have some of them listed here for you to consider as you're looking through the information on the website. Here is a brief look at the undergraduate application requirements and the timeline for applying for summer 2022 scholarships. Please start your application on the Pitt Funds Me site, which is available through mypitt.edu, so you can plan to complete by the January 15th deadline. There are other graduate scholarships available through the nationality rooms and intercultural exchange programs that are not specific to location. Those scholarships are listed here. You can find more information at www.nationalityrooms.pitt.edu. Here is a brief look at the graduate application requirements and the timeline for applying for summer 2022 scholarships. Please start your application on the Pitt Funds Me site, available at mypitt.edu, so you can plan to complete by the February 15 deadline. This is a reminder that the scholarships available through the nationality rooms and intercultural exchange programs are awarded for experiences approved by Pitt's Global Experiences Office. The Global Experiences Office takes policies and guidance pertaining to COVID-19 mitigation very seriously for the health and safety of Pitt students and the global communities where we operate. Please refer to the URL provided here to learn more about current operating procedures and locations for study abroad. In conclusion, I wanted to share with you that I was a recipient in 1987 of a Hungarian Room Committee Scholarship. It was an experience that transformed my life. It led me on a different path in my undergraduate studies. I returned to Hungary following my undergraduate studies to work at the American Embassy in Budapest. Following that, I returned to the United States to work at the University of Pittsburgh and to pursue my graduate studies. And since graduation from the University of Pittsburgh, also working in international education for over 30 years. I encourage you to continue with your study of the Slovak language, the Slovak culture, and also to apply for a Nationality Rooms and Intercultural Exchange Program scholarship. If you have questions, please write to nriep@pitt.edu, and we would be happy to talk with you and answer your questions.
My name is Mary Wilshire. I'm the current president of the WPSCA, which is the Western Pennsylvania Slovak Cultural Association. And we have Michael Kamali, who is a board member also, and we have the Lady of the Hour, Sue Andrejko, who's going to receive our Lifetime Award for Lifetime Achievement Award for all that she has done for the Slovak community in Pittsburgh and the surrounding area, and the amount of work that she has done
For so many years.
So many years.
We'll present this to you. It's a plaque, yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's not everyone who gets one like that. These are real.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Yeah, thank you so much for everything. Yeah.
And if there were tons of us, we'd all be clapping.
Yeah.
So clap loud.
I also want to give a really loving shout out to Rudy Andreyko, that's Sue's husband. Yes, she does do everything, but they are a duo and they do it together. So we want to give him a recognition as well. They're lovely people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to thank Joe Sanko and all the fellow members of the Western Pennsylvania Slovak Cultural Association for honoring me this way. And, I'll continue to help them however I can.
Pochválen buď Pán Ježiš Kristus.
Na veky amen.
Slováci radi spievajú, rozprávajú a radi pestrujú krásne, bohaté tradície, čo obohacuje a pestrí každodenný život ľudí. Pripojte sa k našim poslucháčom.
Hello, Sue Andreyko, co-host of the Western Pennsylvania Slovak Radio Hour, inviting you to join us each Sunday afternoon as we present the traditions and culture of Slovakia through the beautiful music of our people, representing their unconquerable spirit. Until Sunday afternoon.
Do počutia do budúcej nedele. Svoho.
Ahoj, volám sa Alice Štrále and I'm the co-founder of the Czech and Slovak School of Pittsburgh. Our school was founded in 2015 and runs as a program of a non-profit organization, Friends of Via. We're dedicated to raising a new generation of Czech and Slovak language speakers in the Pittsburgh area. Our mission is to serve the community by providing quality language and educational programs while preserving and promoting the Czech and Slovak heritage.
Ben Sorensen is playing the Fujara, a uniquely Slovak instrument, a mountain shepherd's flute.
Počúvajte kľudne, ako mi tá moja fujarvočka mumle, ako mi tá moja, ako mi tá moja fujarvočka mumle. Fujarvočka moja nemá len 3 dierky, prejavuje radosť a robí žiaľ veľký. Prejavuje radosť, prejavuje radosť a robí žiaľ veľký. Tie prekrásne hlasy, robíš mi ty hrdosť a naše drahé vlasti. Robíš mi ty hrdosť, Hej, robić mi ty hrdost, a naše drahé vlasti.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, the National Slovak Society, or NSS, the First Catholic Slovak Union, or FCSU, the Ladies Pennsylvania Slovak Catholic Union, the First Catholic Slovak Ladies Association, and Sokol USA. We hope you've enjoyed this virtual Slovak Heritage Festival, and we sincerely hope that we'll see you next year on November 6th, 2022, inside the Cathedral of Learning here at the University of Pittsburgh. Stay healthy.
Serteczko mojo, nie się ja.